afternoon, everyone. My name is Madina, and today, together with my colleague, we're diving into a topic that most of us experience every day but rarely discuss, and this is the silence. We often think of communication as an active process, speaking, writing, or gesturing. But what happens when nothing is said? And by the end of this first part, you'll understand the psychological and cultural frameworks that make one person's awkward pause another person's moment of respect. And what is cultural silence? Let's start with a definition. According to Ikuko Nakane, silence is not the absence of communication, it's a non-verbal code. Think about your last Zoom call or coffee date. In the United States or much of Western Europe, a silence lasting a longer than 1 second feels like a social emergency. We feel an almost physical urge to feel it because we associate silence with a lack of confidence or glitch in the social flow. However, if we look to Japan or Finland, silence is often viewed as a space between things that gives them meaning. In this cultural jumping into quickly isn't seen as being smart. It's seen as being impulsive or even rude. And in his point, this context silence is a sign of processing power. It shows you are giving the speaker's words the weight they deserve. Where does this tension show up? Everywhere. At Webster Tashkent, we have unique mix of local Uzbek students and international faculty or expats. In multicultural group work, this creates a perception gap. And the recent research by Zhang shows that Western trained managers or students often mistake silence for a lack of interest, low English proficiency, or even incompetence. They think if they are not talking, they must not have anything to say. But the reality is usually the opposite. The silenced member might be waiting for a formal opening, showing respect to the group leader, or carefully formulating a high quality contribution. And when we misread this, we don't just hurt feelings, we lose out one of the best ideas in the room. And the first theory is high vs low context. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the work of Edward. He divided the world into low context and high context cultures. In low context cultures like the US or Germany, words carry 90% of meaning. We say exactly what we mean. If there's a silence, the system has failed because information is not moving. In the high context cultures like here in Uzbekistan or in East Asia, the environment, the relationship, and the pauses carry the meaning. In these cultures, silence is a form of communication itself. Hall called this the hidden dimensions of culture. It's like an iceberg, and the words are just the tip, but the silence represents the massive amount of shared understanding beneath of the surface. And if you only listen to the words, you're missing more than half the conversation. Next theory, we have chronomics, or the study of we perceive time. Monochronic cultures see time as linear, like conveyor belt. You do one thing at a time, and every second must be productive. In this view, silence is wasted time. And polychronic cultures, however, see time as a cycle or natural rhythm. Imagine a heartbeat. A heartbeat needs the space between the beats to function. For many cultures, silence is the space. It's breeze of the relationship when an American professor expects a linear rapid-fire Q&A, an Uzbek student provides a cyclic reflexive pause. They are not just speaking different languages, they are living in different time zones. And let's look at a real world example, business negotiation. Picture an American manager making a price offer. The Japanese partner stays silent for 5 seconds, and for American, those 5 seconds feel like 5 hours of rejection. Panicking, he lowers the price further to save the deal. Then the Japanese partner was not rejecting the offer, he was simply honoring the proposal by thinking about it, and by not understanding the silence code, the American lost money. And this brings us to our first major insight. He who understands the silence owns the room. If you can stay comfortable in the quiet, you gain a strategic advantage. Now, my colleague will take us deeper into the date and specific strategies of our company.
Hello everyone. Today we're going to describe interesting topic. Let's start from face saving and harmony. Moving to one of the deepest reasons behind silence, the concept of face saving and social harmony. In collectivist cultures such as Uzbekistan or countries across Central Asia, maintaining group harmony is often more important than expressing a personal opinion. In this context, silence acts as a social shield. If someone disagrees with you, they may remain silent to avoid offending you with direct no or answering negatively. So, in this culture, silence is a polite form of refusal or a way to prevent conflict. So, as a great hospital noted, in collective societies, harmony is core value, and the silence is one of the most important tools for harmony. So let's move to the next slide. It's about research insights. So, for example, in the United States, a pause of just 1 or 2 seconds is already perceived as a sign of uncertainty or breakdown in communication. Meanwhile, in high context cultures like Japan or China, a standard thinking pause can last up to even 5 seconds. So imagine that, for example, one person is beginning to panic, the other has only just started formulating thoughts or thoughtful response. It is a critical moment where data confirms that we are literally living in different communicative rhythms. So let's move to the next slide. It's going to be about our university, Webster University context. So, for example, we can apply this theory to our university. We often can see that, for example, professors from another countries ask a question to their students, and then there is a silence. So professor can see that, for example, students are not prepared or they just not really interested in their lesson. So it's actually happening in the theory of high power distance. For many of us, silence is a profound sign of respect to professor or elder ones and professor authority. So we don't interrupt. We should wait and reflect only when professor stopped their speech. So it's not passivity, it's a cultural code of respect. Understanding this nuance can completely transform the atmosphere in the international classrooms and help to understand each other culture. So let's move to the next slide. It's a practical solutions and strategies. So how can we bridge the gap? We have practical solutions for this. For example, if person is an active speaker, there is a tactic of 5-second rule. Active speakers just should simply count to 5 in their head before re-asking the question and not just jumping in the dialogue. So if person is a silent communicator, they can use meta communications. For example, just tell another person that they need some time to think, and this thing is immediately lowers anxiety of the communicator and shows that you're actively engaged in the process. So moving to the next slide, it's awareness campaign. Speak to silence. So our awareness campaign is titled Speak to Silence. Of course, people want every human to, for example, in Webster, to realize that silence, it's also a message. It's not just empty void. And the goal is to reduce stress in multicultural communications, teams. Before judging someone for their silence, it might be cultural context. So we should just listen, not just what people said. We can also understand what person did not say. So this is also the key for true intercultural communication and intelligence. So thank you for your attention. Here's the reference list.